Hey guys, enter the stars. And during the live show this morning, many of you had mentioned this brand new Utah monolith. Now, I'm going to call this the new Georgia Guidestone. We can actually call it the Utah Guidestone, and I'm going to tell you why in a little bit. But in just a quick look at this particular mysterious object that was supposedly discovered by people flying over in a plane, I made some pretty fascinating discoveries. Now, this thing is 10 feet tall, 3 meters, and just so happened to be discovered on November 18th, the 322nd day of the year. Of course, that's 322, skull and bones. And we know for a fact that the Georgia Guidestones were erected on 322 as well. So there is a definite connection between these two objects. Now, this was 40 years ago. That is another very important number. Now, as far as I can tell, these two objects seem to be about 1,551 miles apart. We don't know the exact location of where this monolith is, because they won't tell us the exact location, because according to the story, they're not telling people because they don't want people out in these remote areas looking and searching for this thing, which is very, very suspect as well. But there's something going on here. Definite connection between Georgia Guidestones and this new metal object. Let's read a little bit about this. It says, who embedded a large metal monolith in the remote Utah desert? State wildlife officials are scratching their heads after discovering a bizarre 10-foot tall installation. Now, there are no tracks really going in and out of this thing. It seemed to have been dropped in from the air somehow. Very strategically placed. They also talk about how they actually dug this into the solid rock and were able to set it up, and that this was probably very challenging and difficult to do, to actually get it out there. They also surmise that maybe the thing was pinned together, because you can see it's bolted together. There's like paneling on it, and they're not sure if it's solid or not. And of course, they go into all the speculation of what they think this thing's about, and make jokes about, of course, all of us, the people who break these things down. But look at this. You can almost see some kind of imagery in the rocks here. I don't want to go too far into what this looks like, but it definitely looks like something very bizarre. And they picked this spot for a reason at the base of this canyon. Does not look like it's been there very long. Otherwise, it'd be full of dust and somewhat weathered, maybe even some rust. So they found it on the day that they found it for a very specific reason. And that's the point I'm trying to get at, because they want this to link to the Guidestones. Now, the height of this thing, 10 to 12 feet high, is almost half of what the Guidestones are. About half the height. The Guidestones are about 20 feet tall. This thing's about 10 feet tall. So what is this really about? Well, it's like everything else. It is opposites. And the fact that these two objects are related to one another definitely is something we need to take a look at as the story evolves and unfolds. I want to know the exact kind of metal it's made out of, if it's some kind of alloy. Once we get this thing from the air, I want to look at how it's aligned, where it's pointing to and from, and also the exact GPS coordinate. So far as we can tell, no one has the exact GPS coordinate yet. They mention a Reddit post, and if you guys have any additional information on this object, it is very important that we get down to the bottom of this to expose these people. But the story here, absolutely, is that it is related to the Georgia Guidestone by the date of its discovery, the 322nd day of the year, and the Guidestones were erected on 3/22/1980, 40 years ago. Now, the probable location of this is in the Arches National Park. And here's another creep factor. When you look at all the 666s associated with the Arches National Park. Casey, what does 666 have to do with 322? Well, 3 times 22 is 66. All this stuff's connected. Arches are portals. This is everything we've been talking about. So we have 109.56667 degrees west is where Arches National Park is. And the monument is somewhere in this area of Utah, southwest Utah, so probably somewhere near the Colorado River. And in looking at more of the specs on this, you see there are 66s all throughout. Even the visitors, 1,663,557 visitors in 2018. So we'll keep our eyes peeled. If you guys have any additional information, just pop it down into the comment section and we can have a discussion about this. But this is pretty fascinating stuff, and we'll see how all this ends up panning out. Take care and be safe, you guys. Be saved.